Well, welcome all. A couple of weeks ago I made a video about my gimbal obsession, and in that video I made a comment that the Crane M2 is not really suitable for mobile phone use. But after a couple of weeks of using my Olympus camera on the gimbal, which balances well and everything else, I became frustrated once again with the TG5 and decided to turf it. And so I went ahead and tried to find a way to get my mobile phone balanced on the gimbal. And after a lot of trial and error, I eventually did get it to balance. And what I want to do is just talk about how I balanced it, and perhaps it may help others with similar sort of rather chunky and heavy mobile phones, and maybe pass a message to Zhiyun about the way they've designed the gimbal. Another sort of minor design failure that clearly indicates that when they were testing it, they weren't testing the gimbal mechanisms and so forth and the attachments with a variety of phones, and I'll explain why. First off, you'll notice how I've got the phone attachment hooked up to the little adapter that slides on, and I'll just take it off to give a better view perhaps. The little adapter that slides into the mount itself on the gimbal has a sort of an ear that comes out to one side, which goes to the back of the gimbal itself towards the roll motor. And that is the first failure with the gimbal itself when you want to use a mobile phone. What they should have done is copied that ear and made it symmetrical on both sides. And what that would then allow you to do is slide the phone adapter either further forward and then add a little counterweights to the back, or allow it to go further back to allow counterweights at the front to give it ease of balance. Now I managed to get it balanced by putting that phone adapter at the very end. It just made it and just enabled me to balance the phone on the gimbal. But had it had an extension, it would have been a hell of a lot easier to balance the phone. So why they made it like that beggars belief. I suspect that they just used one or two different types of phones, probably small iPhones, and I'll explain why. Rather than looking at some of the larger phones and experimenting with that. So with that just sort of sliding in fact I'll put the phone on first. So the phone will now clip on, and I'll explain what I also had to do to make the phone work, because it wasn't as easy as it appears. So the phone clips in, and then I slide it forward, and then when I disengage all the locks, I do like the fact that you can lock the whole gimbal up and then just have a memory sort of spot where it goes on. So I've now managed to more or less balance the phone, and I can just slide that down a little bit to give it a bit of extra balance. So it sits level, it'll sit at different angles, like that, and so it works. And it does perform reasonably well with that sort of configuration, but it was very limiting. It was just on the very edge of being able to be installed. However, that then raises another issue, is that with the motor, pitch motor now sitting squarely in the middle of the phone, or the phone in the middle of the pitch motor, I can't attach a 3.5mm jack in there to use my wireless transmitter or receiver. And that in itself is a bit of a problem in my view. Had it been able to move the phone forwards or backwards, then I could have actually attached the cable in there. Now I can't do that, and I can't move the phone backwards or forwards anymore, because you can't actually really put counterweights in the space that's available. Had that little adapter gone symmetrical and allowed me to move the phone further forward, there would have been room to put a counterweight on the back to balance the forward tilting of the phone itself, or conversely put the phone at the back here and a counterweight at the front. But I can't do that, so that limits my microphone use with the camera entirely, and I think that's a real failure to actually test the gimbal or the gimbal mounting system with a variety of phone types. And a lot of people are using fairly large phones nowadays, and I've got a gel case on mine because I don't want to take that off every time I put on the gimbal, which raised another issue that is common with, I think, just about every gimbal or gimbal mount made for mobile phones. It was with my Zhiyun Smooth 4, the DJI OM4 that I have is the same problem, and even the Zhiyun mount that came with my Crane 3S has exactly the same issue. And what that is is where the phone clips into the holder, they actually make the gap in there extremely thin. And even with the gel mount off, like with the DJI, the phone just fits in, and sort of there's a bit of a touch and go situation whether it's clamping onto it properly or not. And I think that's quite a crazy sort of design. But what I found with the Crane M2 was there's some rubbers in there that grip the phone, and I was able to peel them off, and that actually left me a very wide gap to hold the phone quite easily and firmly. And I don't know why the thing has to be designed that way, because the clamping force goes down, so there should be a fair amount of room left in there for a variety of different phones, but they don't do that. And I found that to be a significant issue with mounting the phone, because it kept on trying to peel the gel mount or cover off. And I just want to be able to put the phone on there and use it without having to take that thing off and then put it somewhere and then replace it when I'm finished. So that side of it, it actually came up to be quite good. And I'll just turn it on. So as you can see, it works quite well. It does that, which is opposite to what the DJI mobile phone holder does, but it works well because it balances this thing very, very nicely. And what I like is it does the 360, which the DJI doesn't do, and it'll go back, and it's gone into. It's got various modes in there. You can see videos about it that show you all the different modes that it does. But it works quite well. I'm quite pleased with it now. And I can use the Filmic Pro app with the phone, which produces really good video. And so it works, but there's these little design flaws, in my view, that make it sort of, make me wonder, do they thoroughly test these things with sufficient options to see how things go. And the other thing is that I can't, there's a little power outlet that allows you to recharge your phone while you're, or camera, while you have the thing on the gimbal, but with the phone I can't put that in there either because of where it's located with the, I'll turn it around, against the pitch motor. So those ports on the phone are completely blocked now by that, because I can't put that phone in any other position but right there. So that's something you have to live with, but it does work. So I'm happy with that. And another little side issue, this is not connected to the, or the phone can't connect to the gimbal like the DJI does or the Smooth 4 does. And I contacted Filmic Pro about that and asked whether they would be looking at making an app or a firmware update so that the phone could connect to this particular gimbal, because it does connect to different cameras and so forth, and I thought it would be quite straightforward to do the same sort of firmware ability that the Smooth 4 and the other ones do. So, but they replied and said no, they've got no intention to do that at the moment. So that's life. But what I found was one of these cheap little $5 dongles that you can get on eBay or wherever. The Bluetooth things for starting and stopping recording on phones actually does work with Filmic Pro, so I don't have to sort of reach in to try to start and stop the recording. I can actually do it with a little cheap dongle, so that's a good bonus, and I'm happy with that. But yeah, it'd be nice if the actual features on the handle would enable you to at least stop recording, if nothing else. And it doesn't matter which app you're using, Filmic Pro or the actual native camera app. Nothing connects to the gimbal handle itself. But I thought I'd put that out there for people who watched that previous video and then had some doubts about a phone working with this gimbal. It does work, and it works well once you get it set up, but it does have its limitations as to the type of phone. And if you've got a bigger phone than this, or a heavier phone, it could cause issues because you just can't get the balancing point necessarily just right to enable it to be fitted in. It's possible, but it requires a lot of fiddling, and I've now connected this one as a permanent mount on there because when I took it off, packed it away, that's the adapter itself there, it becomes a real bugger to get just right. So it takes you 5-10 minutes or sometimes more just to get it right. So I've just basically made it a permanent thing, and I can't put that into the case because the case won't take it with the adapter and the phone holder connected together, which is a bit of a pity. But I've got another case where I can now put all this together in one whole unit. So I just thought I'd put that out there to fix up a bit of an erroneous statement that I made, probably made in haste. So for those who are considering the M4 over, say, the DJI or the Smooth 4, it does work. I believe it offers more features than both of the other two do, except for the start-stop recording, and it's not a bad gimbal at all. So on that note, I'll call it cheers.